The UK is at a breaking point. Just moments ago, King Charles delivered a fierce and unprecedented warning that has sent shockwaves through Westminster and beyond. This was no ordinary royal statement. It was a blunt message aimed squarely at Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. The King's concerns go beyond politics. They strike at the very heart of Britain's sovereignty, the sacred trust given by the British people in 2016, and the looming betrayal unfolding right under our noses. What you are about to hear is not just news, it's a wake-up call for the entire nation. Behind the polished headlines and carefully managed press conferences, an alarming reality is emerging. Labour, under Starmer's leadership, is quietly steering Britain back towards the European Union, undoing the Brexit promise that millions voted for. The King's warning isn't just about policy, it's about the future of the United Kingdom itself. As the dust settles on recent EU-UK meetings, it becomes clear that the foundations laid in 2016 are being deliberately and systematically dismantled. Starmer's approach is more than political manoeuvring. It's a betrayal of the democratic will, and the monarch is making sure the country knows it. This is not speculation or partisan spin. From whispers within Buckingham Palace to diplomatic circles in Brussels, unease is growing. King Charles, who has long remained cautious and politically neutral, is now openly voicing his concern. Sources close to the palace reveal his deep unease over Starmer's plans, especially the push to realign Britain with EU food standards and revive the role of the European Court of Justice on UK soil. These moves are not mere adjustments, they threaten the very independence Britain fought for. Starmer's proposed youth mobility scheme is another example of his government's secretive and controversial steps to reintroduce open border policies under new names, policies that many feel directly contradict the spirit of Brexit. The King's message is clear. This is not dialogue or diplomacy, it is surrender. Starmer's strategy includes funneling UK defence money into Brussels' military projects, inviting foreign oversight of British law, and undermining the nation's control over its own resources. His true agenda has been masked by political doublespeak and media distractions, but the monarch's words cut through the noise. The British people were promised sovereignty and control. Instead, they are witnessing a creeping loss of autonomy. The monarch is sounding the alarm because this is not just about politics. It is about the survival of the nation's identity and constitutional integrity. This growing crisis is unfolding at the very moment when public patience is running thin. Recent local elections exposed Labour's vulnerability, with Reform UK gaining ground as the only party steadfastly committed to completing Brexit. Nigel Farage's return to the political stage is a direct response to this sense of betrayal, rallying voters who feel abandoned by the mainstream parties. Yet, Starmer remains deaf to these warnings, pressing ahead with plans that many see as handing Britain back to Brussels on a silver platter. The EU, sensing weakness, is already demanding greater access to British waters and markets, preparing to reclaim influence wherever possible. At its core, this is a battle for Britain's future, a fight between those who respect the 2016 referendum and those who seek to undo it quietly and strategically. The King's public intervention has shattered any illusion that this is a routine political debate. It is a stark reminder that the stakes are higher than ever. As Starmer moves to sign Britain up to the EU's rearmament programmes and reopens channels for EU legal oversight, the monarch is sending a powerful message. The nation must not be sold out under the guise of diplomacy. This is a fight for sovereignty, for the Constitution, and for the promises made to the British people. The gravity of King Charles's warning cannot be overstated. His words have peeled back the veneer of politeness and restraint that usually shrouds royal commentary, revealing a raw and urgent concern about the trajectory of the United Kingdom under Keir Starmer's Labour leadership. This is a moment, unlike any other in recent British history, where the monarch is stepping beyond traditional silence to address what he perceives as an existential threat. Starmer's actions in recent months have exposed a deep rift between the government's public stance and its private ambitions. The Labour Party's quiet moves to realign the UK with Brussels are no accident. They represent a calculated strategy to reverse Brexit, without the scrutiny of a national referendum or widespread public debate. Starmer's leadership has always been marked by a subtle yet persistent rejection of the Brexit mandate. He campaigned for a second referendum and consistently pushed to keep Britain tethered to the EU's customs union and regulatory frameworks. Now, in the shadows of carefully orchestrated meetings with EU officials, these ambitions are materialising. The so-called alignment on food standards, for example, may sound technical to many, but its implications are profound. It means accepting EU regulations as the baseline for British law, a move that strips Parliament of legislative sovereignty on critical trade matters. The reintroduction of the European Court of Justice's jurisdiction on UK soil further undermines this sovereignty. It signals a willingness to let a foreign court override British legal decisions, a direct contradiction of the very purpose of Brexit. This creeping loss of control is being carried out with an unsettling lack of transparency. The youth mobility scheme, once shelved as impractical, is being resurrected quietly, rebranded under new terms to avoid public backlash. What is being sold as temporary migration or cultural exchange is, in reality, a backdoor to open borders, an arrangement many Brexit supporters warned against. The government's hope is that the public remains distracted, disillusioned, or simply unaware of the full consequences. Yet, the King's intervention signals that those in the highest echelons of power are not blind to the dangers. His concerns reflect a broader unease among constitutional experts and national security advisers who fear these policies could fracture the delicate balance of the UK's union and expose it to external pressures that weaken its global standing. Starmer's plans extend beyond legal and migration issues. Reports suggest his government is prepared to commit British defence funding to EU military initiatives, effectively tying the UK's armed forces into Brussels' strategic agenda. This move would mark a dramatic shift from the UK's traditionally independent defence posture, raising questions about national security and sovereignty. For many, this is the ultimate betrayal, not just of Brexit, but of Britain's status as a global power. The King's warning comes at a time when Britain is already grappling with economic challenges, social division, and international uncertainty. To willingly cede control in these areas is seen by critics as reckless and dangerous. The political fallout is already evident. Labour's lead in opinion polls belies deep fractures within British society. The rise of Reform UK, which surged in recent local elections, highlights a growing dissatisfaction with the perceived betrayal by mainstream parties. Nigel Farage's return to the political arena has reignited the debate, giving voice to voters who feel abandoned and betrayed. Farage's message is clear and uncompromising. Brexit must be delivered in full, without the backdoor deals and secret negotiations that threaten its integrity. This growing opposition puts Starmer in a difficult position, but he seems determined to press forward with his agenda, undeterred by public backlash or mounting political risk. Meanwhile, Brussels is watching closely. The EU's reaction to these developments has been one of cautious opportunism. French negotiators, in particular, are pressing for renewed access to British fishing waters, a highly contentious issue that was central to the Brexit negotiations. The EU's broader strategy appears focused on reclaiming influence over UK markets, legal frameworks, and defence policies. By encouraging Starmer's moves, Brussels aims to draw Britain back into the fold, eroding the hard-won gains of Brexit. The looming 19th May summit between the UK and EU is shaping up to be a decisive moment. While it is presented as a chance for renewed cooperation, many see it as a betrayal of British independence, and the King's warning has cast a long shadow over the proceedings. The consequences of this looming betrayal extend beyond politics and diplomacy. The very fabric of the United Kingdom is at risk. Scotland's renewed push for independence gains momentum as fears grow that Brexit is being undone from within. Northern Ireland remains a flashpoint, with EU alignment threatening to deepen divisions and destabilise the peace process. The King's intervention is a rare acknowledgement of these broader constitutional dangers. His call to safeguard sovereignty is not just about trade or law, it is about preserving the unity and identity of the UK itself. As the nation waits anxiously for the 19th May summit, the stakes could not be higher. The public deserves transparency, honesty, and respect for the democratic decisions made in 2016. Starmer's current course threatens to unravel these principles, replacing them with secret deals and concessions that favour Brussels over Britain. King Charles's fierce warning is a historic signal that the constitutional crisis has reached a new and dangerous level. For the future of Britain, the eyes of the world are watching, and the British people are demanding answers. What happens next could redefine the United Kingdom for generations to come. The unfolding drama between King Charles and Keir Starmer over Brexit is not just a political squabble, it's a profound clash of visions for Britain's future. Starmer's Labour Party, while publicly touting a commitment to respecting the Brexit referendum, has long harboured ambitions to soften or even reverse the hard-won independence from the European Union. This duplicity has frustrated millions of voters who feel betrayed after years of campaigning for leave. The King's public warning highlights the scale of the crisis, making it clear that the stakes are no longer confined to partisan politics. They strike at the heart of the British Constitution, sovereignty, and national identity. Behind closed doors, sources reveal a relentless push by Labour to reintegrate the UK economically and legally with the EU, under the guise of alignment and pragmatism. But these terms thinly veil a far-reaching strategy to undo Brexit step by step. The real danger lies in how much power Starmer is willing to hand back to Brussels, and how much control the British people will lose without any fresh mandate. This approach has prompted an unprecedented response from the monarchy, traditionally a neutral and ceremonial institution, signalling just how deeply the breach runs. Starmer's political calculations appear to ignore the growing wave of public outrage. Grassroots movements from pro-Brexit campaigners to Reform UK supporters have mobilised across the country, demanding transparency and accountability. Town halls, online forums, and protest marches are filled with voices warning of a looming betrayal that could fracture the nation. This grassroots energy contrasts sharply with Labour's cautious, behind-the-scenes manoeuvring, which relies on obfuscation and half-truths to push the agenda forward. This divide reflects a wider crisis of trust between the government and the electorate, exacerbated by broken promises and secret deals. Moreover, Starmer's approach is straining relations within the UK itself. Scotland's nationalist government is seizing the moment to renew calls for a second independence referendum, citing Westminster's betrayal over Brexit as proof that Scotland's interests are no longer represented in London. The fragile peace in Northern Ireland is also at risk. The Northern Ireland Protocol, designed to avoid a hard border, has become a lightning rod of controversy, with the EU demanding strict adherence to regulations that many in Northern Ireland see as undermining their British identity. The King's warning underscores how these tensions threaten to unravel the union altogether, raising the spectre of a breakup that could reshape the political landscape of the British Isles forever. In the international arena, the consequences of Starmer's Brexit reversal extend beyond Europe. America, Britain's closest ally, watches with concern as the UK's post-Brexit independence appears to be slipping away. The special relationship is predicated on shared values of sovereignty and self-determination, but the UK's renewed EU alignment risks eroding its strategic autonomy. Meanwhile, China and Russia are observing carefully, ready to exploit any signs of weakness or division within the UK to advance their own geopolitical agendas. In this volatile global context, King Charles's warning is also a call to protect Britain's standing as a strong, independent nation capable of charting its own course. The economic implications are equally dire. The promise that Brexit would unlock prosperity through free trade deals and regulatory freedom has been clouded by growing uncertainty. Starmer's concessions to Brussels threaten to reimpose barriers, slow down trade, and increase costs for British businesses. Farmers, manufacturers, and exporters face new hurdles, while consumers could see higher prices and fewer choices. The government's lack of clear communication only fuels anxiety. Investors are wary, and economic forecasts have been downgraded. The King's intervention serves as a stark reminder that economic sovereignty is inseparable from political sovereignty, and that losing control over trade rules jeopardizes the nation's prosperity. Despite mounting pressure, Starmer appears undeterred. His focus on rebuilding Labour's electoral appeal has led him to court both pro-EU moderates and more traditional left-wing voters, hoping to unify a fractured party. Yet, this balancing act risks alienating key segments of the electorate. Many working-class voters who backed Leave feel increasingly abandoned, while pro-EU activists demand more explicit commitments to remain closely aligned with Brussels. Starmer's failure to clearly articulate his Brexit vision creates confusion and fuels speculation about secret agreements and backroom deals. The King's public warning exposes this uncertainty, forcing the issue into the open and challenging the government to face accountability. The media response has been equally revealing. Mainstream outlets have been slow to report on the King's statement in full, often downplaying the severity of the warning or framing it as an unusual royal comment. Independent journalists and alternative media, however, have amplified the message, sparking vigorous debate and widespread public discussion. Social media platforms have exploded with reactions, ranging from shock and concern to anger and calls for action. The viral nature of these conversations underscores how deeply the issue resonates with the British public, who demand honesty and clarity from their leaders. The upcoming 19th May summit between the UK and the EU now carries an unprecedented weight. Originally intended as a routine meeting to discuss ongoing trade and security cooperation, it has been transformed into a battleground for Britain's future. Observers expect intense negotiations, with Brussels pushing for greater alignment, and the UK government under pressure to deliver concessions. The King's fierce warning looms large, serving as both a cautionary tale and a rallying cry. The outcome of this summit will send shockwaves across the political spectrum, potentially reshaping alliances, policies, and the very notion of British sovereignty. As this crisis unfolds, one thing remains clear. The British people are watching closely. The erosion of trust in political leaders has never been greater, and the stakes have never been higher. King Charles's rare intervention has brought the Brexit debate out of the shadows, exposing the profound challenges facing the United Kingdom. Whether Starmer's government will heed this warning or continue down its current path remains to be seen. But for millions, the future of Britain hangs in the balance, and the call for transparency, respect for democracy, and true sovereignty has never been more urgent. The moment to act is now. The British people cannot afford to remain silent while their sovereignty is quietly dismantled behind closed doors. King Charles's fierce warning is not just a royal reprimand. It is a wake-up call for every citizen who values independence, democracy, and the promises made during the Brexit referendum. It is crucial to hold Starmer and the Labour Party accountable for their actions and demand transparency on where exactly they stand on Brexit. Voters must press their MPs, engage in public debates, and support grassroots movements fighting to preserve the UK's hard-earned freedom. Ignoring this critical issue will only deepen the divide, weaken the union, and threaten the nation's future. This is a pivotal moment in British history, one that demands courage, awareness, and unity from all patriots. Stay informed, speak out, and make your voice heard before it's too late. The future of Britain depends on it.